The ACLU has put forward a very interesting report called A Call to Courage, Reclaiming Our Liberties 10 Years After 9/11. And they are asking for courage in dealing with the civil liberties issues to say, hey, you know what? We shouldn't be so afraid of terrorists that we take away precious American liberties, rights, and freedoms. And unfortunately, the Obama administration has not done very well on that count. Well, let me give you two things that they actually repealed from the Bush administration, which is good, of course. One, they stopped torture. And second of all, they stopped extraordinary renditions. Now, let's pause for a second and recognize that by the time that Obama got into office, torture had already been stopped. Now, might they have picked it up again if a Republican won? It's possible, although John McCain, his opponent, was also not in favor of torture. So he simply, again, continued the policy of no longer torturing, right? And second of all, they also had stopped extraordinary renditions and stopped the CIA black sites by the time Obama got into office. So he didn't actually change any of those things. He continued the policies of stopping those programs. But I'll take what I can do. But what is currently in use is indefinite detention, targeted killing, trial by military commissions, warrantless surveillance, and racial profile, all of which is absolutely disastrous. Why in the world has he continued those programs? And in fact, when it comes to targeted killing, he stepped up the program. And targeted killing is unbelievable. Do you know what it is? It gives the president the right to assassinate any United States citizen as long as he deems them to be a terrorist. No trial, no due process. They have to be abroad, okay? But if they make the mistake of being abroad, well, too bad. Now, look, remember how many people we picked up and did the extraordinary renditions, otherwise known as kidnappings, and how many people we tortured, and then, oops, later we found out they were totally innocent. I mean, out of dozens of examples, there was a guy in Canada. Oh, sorry, we got the wrong guy. There was a guy from Germany that we picked up, tortured for months, and then dropped off in Eastern Europe saying, whoops, turns out there was a guy who had a similar name as you. Of course, do you know how many Muslim names are similar? Now, okay, that's just kidnapping and torture. What happens when we kill the wrong guy? When we execute him and go, well, oops, I guess we shouldn't have executed that U.S. citizen. Oh, well, our bad. Now, on the issue of torture, you know, it's something that the Obama supporters often brag about. There's a second problem. One, it had already been stopped. Two, actually, some people say that there's still torture by proxy going on where we hand off people to other countries and then just don't look the other way while they torture them. But let's get even beyond that and go to the third problem, which is that no one has been prosecuted. So which means that it just has become political differences. It's not a crime anymore to torture people. In fact, the ACLU report says, quote, not a single victim of the Bush administration's torture regime has had his day in court, and not a single court that was faced with a torture suit has addressed the core question of whether the victim's legal rights were violated. So if nobody ever went to trial and there was never a ruling that torture isn't legal, well, then it's just a political difference of opinion. Next time a Republican comes in, they can just go ahead and resume it. That is part of the problem of normalizing the things that were radical. That's why it's a crazy idea to not look backward and only look forward, especially in the area of prosecution. Because the whole idea of prosecution is to look back at what crimes you committed. So now on the issue of racial profiling, you must think, well, President Obama's administration can't be doing that, right? Well, listen to the ACLU report. No area of American Muslim civil society was left untouched by discriminatory and illegitimate government action during the Bush years. In short, the Bush administration used religious, racial, and national origin profiling as one of this nation's primary domestic counterterrorism tools. Now, that's the Bush administration. They were horrible. They did everything you can imagine, as you see there. How about the Obama administration? Here's what the ACLU goes on to say. To an alarming extent, the Obama administration has continued to embrace profiling as official government policy. And it's not just different racial groups that are infiltrated. With our surveillance programs, we are infiltrating all sorts of political groups. And what the ACLU report does is, by the way, it's not their opinion. They're showing you facts. This is a program that continues, that is acknowledged, things that we have discovered, either through leaks or through the government saying, yes, we're doing that. what they're doing is, instead of looking in on terrorists, they're looking on against political opponents. And whether it was the Bush administration or the Obama administration, 9 out of 10 times it winds up people being on the left. So people are questioning authority or the establishment. Here's another part of the report. They say, quote, "The government has spied on racial and religious minority groups and community organizations, college groups, military reservists calling home to their families, journalists, aid workers, political activists, and many others." This is exactly what our government was not supposed to do. This is exactly what is the opposite of what America stands for. We're not supposed to go in and spy in on political groups and try to crush them. And it's all under the guise of fighting an eternal war on terrorism. It's become like 1984. And why is the Obama administration going after not only racial and religious groups, but I guess community organizers? Barack Obama was a community organizer, but I guess those days are long gone. Now he's part of the establishment that thinks, hey, you know what? Continuing programs where we crush American civil liberties and sometimes even making them worse with the targeted killing programs that have been expanded is the new Barack Obama, the one that loves the establishment and apparently loves the civil liberties abuses that the Bush administration started and he campaigned against, but is completely supported as president.